Hello, beautiful souls. I'm your host and author, Julie Jancius, and you're listening to the Angels and Awakening podcast. Today, I'm interviewing my husband, Blake Jancius. Blake and I have really felt this calling within our hearts to start a couples podcast. Friends, I always believe that when you are going through life, God, Universe, Source always puts you through things in order for you to not suffer from them your entire life, but to learn how to heal. Because when you learn how to heal an aspect of your life, you're able to turn back and help pull other people forward. And Blake and I have done so much work on ourselves. We're just the type of people who believe in constantly growing and learning and becoming better people ourselves. And we just always have felt that individually and on a level as a couple. We've done a ton of work on it. The other thing is, in running this podcast, the Angels and Awakening podcast, I constantly get this question from the audience of, what does Blake think about what you do and how you work with clients and the podcast? And so we'll get to that in a second. But one of the things in running this podcast and interviewing other people that really irked me was there's a person that I had on the podcast who's very big in the spiritual teaching world, has been on Oakbrook, is just a really big audience. And when this person came on the podcast, I did a lot of research into the books that they have out there, the information that they have out there. And basically this person was beginning to tell people that if they're not in a relationship with a person who is spiritually on the same wavelength that they are, that the relationship was bad or doomed or wrong. And you've probably heard me say this on the podcast before, but I don't believe that at all. You are on your soul's path, which means that all the time, your angels, your guides, your loved ones on the other side are working with you on your soul's journey. But that does not always look like what your partner's spiritual journey is going to look like, or what their soul's path is like. And just because you're two different individuals on two different journeys is not bad. It's the way it's supposed to be, and that you love coming together and getting to enjoy one another. So I really wanted to also create this space in a couples working with couples. We are going to, at the end of the summer of 2025, launch a couples podcast. We've also got a couples retreat that's coming up the last weekend in July 2025 here in Oakbrook, Illinois. But Blake, are you excited to start this couples piece? And
you can tell I'm smirking right now. Yeah. I've been thinking about this for over 2 minutes. Did you notice what I just did there, gentlemen? Or ladies? I'm looking at the timer, and it's 3 minutes and 47 seconds, and I haven't said a word.
Yeah.
You just got to listen sometimes. A lot of times. That's the key, is listening. But no, I'm just trying. Obviously, I use a lot of humor. I want to be funny. I like being funny. I want to make her laugh. I like cracking myself up, too.
Day long.
I'm always thinking. My mind's always going. So I was just trying to start off with something funny, but I love trying to make myself better. I've always been that way, probably even as a kid. And I've always tried to, I got my notes here, but one of the things I was thinking about when I was student teaching over 25 years ago, I remember at the end of taking over this long-term sub, I went up to the principal and I said, what is a 403B? What are these things to me? What should I be looking for as I start my career? And one of my student teacher, or my cooperating teacher, I was a student teacher, he'd say, you got to get your master's, do this, do that, and do that. And
before you have a family.
Before you have a family and all that stuff. And I remember, again, long story short, we would take grad courses together, and we got to master's plus 45 at the same time, yet he's 22 years older than I am. So I was always, how do I make something better for my long-term future? Whether it's, a lot of times it's financial, especially it's early on in your career and you don't have somebody in your life because you are focused on your career. Right now I'm even hearing my little sister in my head saying, you can't make somebody love you or whatever until you make yourself, until you love yourself. So I hear all these little voices and all these different things, because how can you make somebody care about you if you're not in a good, healthy position?
Yeah.
And we've all had our ups and downs in our lives. You find somebody, you think it's the one, and then it doesn't work out. And then you think, oh my gosh, it's never going to work out. And I just know that in 2007, but it was 2007, 1 week before I turned 30, I know I was in a really good place. And that's why I walked into this room, and that's where I met this beautiful woman that you've been listening to for maybe months or weeks, or maybe for some of you for years and stuff. And like I said, my goal is always to try to make myself better. And we've had struggles in our relationship.
Nobody's perfect.
I'm going to still make mistakes, but I have a toolbox now. You're going to hear me refer to that a lot through counseling, through laughter, through tears, to just make myself better, to make ourselves better. And again, through counseling, I know I'm a better person. I'm a better husband. I'm a better father. I'm a better teacher. I'm a better everything.
Both of us went through divorces at similar times in our lives, our 8th grade year, even though Blake's 4.5 years older than I am. And I watched my mom my entire life move around the country for my dad and really take a back seat with her career because she was trying to help my father with his. And when they got divorced, I saw how much that one choice really impacted her entire future, because there was this one day in their court case where they were deciding on my dad's retirement, his pension. And even though they had been together for about 20 years, my mom didn't get a single dime of that retirement fund that they had really truly both saved together. And you with your mom too, you saw the same thing too, about just how divorce financially can just wreak havoc on couples. And one of the things that we've both wanted for our daughter Elle is to see us strong, to see what a healthy relationship looks like. We didn't grow up with a healthy relationship, so we had to figure out how to create that ourselves. But we wanted her to see certain things, like how to be financially independent herself. You can speak more to that. I'm going to turn on the fan because it is
hot.
hot.
Yeah. All right, as she's doing that, I just already lost my train of thought.
It's not easy, is it?
Oh, this is tricky because
it's just like you were saying earlier as we were preparing, I don't think that I came into our relationship taking a back seat. In fact, I don't think that this is something that I've ever told you, but I really came into our relationship, and I think it was the first true relationship that I came in, not wanting to appease you or make you happy, but I just really was tired of the whole dating game, and I just wanted somebody that I could be myself with. And so for the very first time with you, I wasn't going to let you slide on anything. I was going to call you on what I needed to call you on, and I was going to create a real true partnership between us, because come hell or high water, I was determined that I wasn't going to go through what my mom went through.
Absolutely, and that's fair. And just to kind of keep this in mind, and I don't know what our age demographics is, we met and I was 1 week before I turned 30. And so I wasn't this kid. I already had a career, had a townhouse, had a lot of things going for me. And as Julie was saying, like with our daughter, we want her not to rely on a man. I have 3 sisters. I have a mother. I look at Julie's mother and all these things that just kind of got stuck. I want to support that, and I'm glad that she did that. And you're going to hear later on in this interview, I'll say I'm glad that she did those things, because really, even though she's fighting for her, she's really fighting for us. And 2 people, especially when you're raising a child, is always going to be better than a split family, if it can be on healthy circumstances or terms. Obviously, if there's a lot of dysfunction in a family, then maybe a divorce is needed.
Yeah.
But our goal, we didn't do anything dumb when we went through our marital things. We just lost connection. We'll get into that in a little bit. But I know, Julie, we need to do this podcast, and I really want you to appeal to the men. What would a man want to hear as we're doing this type of stuff? And so my first thing was, what do you think the typical man will say to his wife right now? And I think the normal guy, if that's a thing, I would say, fine, I'll listen to this guy. I'll make you happy. You're wearing me down. He won't say that part, but you're wearing me down. I'll listen to this guy. But I want you to know I'm a good guy, and we're good, and I'm a good provider. I'm a great provider. Financially, we're fine. I think a lot of men will have to say, we don't have problems like our friends or our neighbors. We are not our parents. I think a lot of people say that. We're not our parents. We're not going to go through those problems. And for those younger people that are getting together younger in their marriage, hey, it's not when you're going to have problems. Did I say that right?
It's not when you're going to have problems, is it? Or it's not if, it's when.
It's not if, it's when. You are going to have problems. But if you could do it together and have that toolbox to say it in a healthy way to avoid fights and friction and resentment and making somebody feel less than, is so helpful. And then, the last thing I wrote down, what I think maybe the typical man might say is, it's tough right now. Work's tough. My boss is on my case, or I'm the boss and my employees are dumb people, or we have kids, and it's all this different stuff. Life's overwhelming. It will get better later. It gets better if you want to do the work, and we're going to get into doing the work. But on some level, all this stuff that I think this might hit home is she doesn't feel connected because she doesn't feel valued. And whether it's your wife, a girlfriend, a partner, that's really what it comes down to. It's all about connection, and it's all about relationship. And you chose this person to be with. You're listening to this with this person right now. You chose that person for a reason. You connected. You had great times. Just life wears you down at times, and life throws things at you, and it's sad at times, and life's gonna give you problems. And for the longest time, I would be in this kind of sad, depressed state. I'm trying not to use that word, but I know I suffered from depression. But looking back, and I've done a lot of stuff on myself through counseling, and it's not depression, even though I took medication for it and they say, yeah, you're depressed. It was more just sadness. And again, there's all these things in the past, but I did this Tony Robbins seminar, and it really clicked home on a couple things. That sadness, I saw this great episode, this great clip on YouTube about this Indian man just crying, and he's got all this money. I just feel sad. And I love that Tony Robbins said, what if that's just overwhelming grace? And I'm not this religious person, but somehow that really connected with me, that there's this grace that you're here. There's this grace you went through these problems, but you're still here. There's this grace that you came out stronger. And it just was really touching and really moving. And I said, instead of, it's not depression, it's just, I care so much about things. I want to make myself better. I want Julie to be happy. I want our daughter to be happy. I want to do a good job at work. But it all starts with me first. I can't make Julie happy if I'm not happy, if I'm slouching around and moping. First, do I ever slouch around and mope around the house?
Not really
Not
anymore.
Really. Yeah. Okay. All right. But I'm always doing work.
Oh, always doing work.
I'm a busybody. I'm always cleaning. I'm always doing something. I always have to make myself preoccupied. Anyways, we'll get on to that. Again, what is the typical guy thinking? Oh, I don't need this and stuff. But why not invest a little bit of time right now with your partner? And if you can have a conversation that goes to the next level, and every day you're going to hear me say this again over and over again, progress equals happiness. Even the smallest little thing, when you make that little bit of progress, you're just going to feel better. And it gets easier as you keep on going. I'll let you kind of jump in here with your notes. I have more stuff, but I'll let you kind of jump in and run the show, Julie.
I think that what you're talking about, a couple different things. I just want to say for my spiritual folks here who are listening, I used to pray when I was a younger girl and we lived with my grandparents, God, please send me a man just like my grandfather. And I know that might be a weird thing to hear, but my grandfather loved my grandmother so much. The way that he looked at her, I feel like the way that he put her on a pedestal, and he was always doing something like with his energy. He was just really fun. And I really do feel like that God sent me.
I met him at least twice, maybe 3 times.
Before he passed?
And, he was really sick, especially that last time. He was sick the first time I met him, and I only got to know him for over, a 2-year period.
Yeah.
I could cry thinking about this because he wasn't at our wedding. And I just know how close you were with him. But he always had something. I would look in his garage and he's cleaning up. Let me help you. I got to do something. And I would trim a palm tree for him. So that's one of my goals. Our goals is I want to be able to trim palm trees one day in my house.
I know.
Maybe it's Florida. Hopefully it's not underwater. I would love to be California and San Diego because that sounds awesome, but that's pretty pricey. But we'll go from there.
Yes,
you got to have aspirations. You got to have some dreams.
Have I taught you how to dream?
Absolutely. My dad would say, Julie, you talk to Julie and say, oh, my son says he's never had this much fun. I had to bring in my dad one day to talk. He wouldn't quite get this type of concept. He could tell stories though, but
yeah.
Julie, there's so many things, but I think the best gift that Julie, besides our daughter and besides our relationship, that gave me is I'm here to live for the now. I'm so focused on the future. And I kind of joke I was designed to live during the Depressions because
man saves everything.
I save a lot of stuff. I don't piss away a lot of money. And now this is nice when we go on these trips. This is nice having that. And I always had nice things, but Julie gave me that freedom in myself to say, you deserve to buy something for yourself.
Oh, yay. So. And going back to what you were saying, kind of about like what would you say to men who are listening, who are skeptical about listening to something like this? I think you said to me the other day, I don't know if all people realize that they're here to grow, but from a spiritual perspective, I believe that the soul is just consciousness expanding into more love. And the only way that you can do that is to grow here. So I loved what you had to say about men. Are you looking up something that you want to say?
I'm looking up something. You keep on talking.
Yeah. But really, what I was saying before is so true. There's wisdom with everything that you go through. And I think so many of us, like I've been talking about on the podcast, feel like, who am I to help other people forward in this? And what the angels say all the time is, who are you not to? Because other people need that help and that wisdom. We've been together for 17
years.
Yeah. Now, and we've just learned all the tools that really work. And it's not easy. A lot of times we would go to the counselor at the beginning. I'm ADHD. And the counselor would look at me and be like, Julie, if you weren't ADHD and if you could just keep a calendar and if you were just organized, you wouldn't have any of these problems.
You mean our current counselor?
No, old counselor.
Yeah. Again, we've gone to multiple counselors.
To find the right one.
Yeah, and I'm looking at all these things, and part of the reason why I'm looking at these things, and again, I have my Tony Robbins book. I've always been the type of person where I cite my sources. That's important to me. I just came from teachers that would talk about these other band directors and all this stuff and giving credit to the past and who they were inspired by. But when she talks about the spiritual thing, Tony Robbins, and this isn't his thing, but it's one of his things that he talks about, there's 6 human needs. And the final 2 is that growth and contribution, and that's that spiritual element of things. The 4 that things that influence you are creativity, certainty. I'm not doing this right. I'm sorry.
You're bringing in other parts that want to teach.
So my point is, so you started going into a spiritual thing, and that's that next evolution of how can you make yourself better is that growing and giving. and that spiritual aspect. Yeah, I apologize for messing
For those
that up.
of the audience who are like, what does your husband think about what you do? What do you think about it? Because there's other people listening who want to do what I do, want to go through the angel Reiki school.
You're not going to hit me, are you?
No.
I'm just joking.
How often do I hit you?
No, right. I crack jokes, and now you can't see this if you're not watching us, but I kind of duck and I pretend like I don't want to get hit and stuff. But
ever hit him in his life?
No, it's just me trying to be funny. I don't quite get it all. I think when I think of religion and I think of all the abuse and sexual abuse out there, and then the concept of God as a man, because you always hear he, they give that, was that the pronoun he?
Yeah.
And that always rubbed me the wrong way. And
because you don't see God as a man.
Why would they be a man? And
I don't either.
Why? So I don't mean to get into this and to turn people off, but I kind of look at it as she's here providing comfort for people, a service for people, and people don't have to listen to her. They don't agree, they're not going to listen to her, but she is helping a lot of people. And so I think that's truly wonderful. So some people call it God, some people call it grace, some people call it, I don't know, divine something. Again, I don't quite have that vocabulary to explain how I don't know. I don't have that vocabulary.
Well, it's funny because I think that some people are just naturally spiritual people. Like, I don't think that you would define yourself as a spiritual person, but you're the most, like, the man that I've met in this life that is the most deeply connected to your soul that I've ever met. You can't hurt another person. You can't even hurt another spider. It was like last week that you found one and you scooped it up and you're like, headed out back to find a home for this guy out in the backyard. And
spiders I'll crush, but if there's something...
Oh, yeah, it was the mouse.
It was a mouse, and I felt really sad, and I'm like, I'm sorry, buddy, I always apologize. But I do apologize when I kill a spider. I'm sorry, I don't want to do this. This is your fault that you're here.
But he's just like the most in touch with himself, and you wanting to find a way to make us work really is the reason that we did, because there was a time when you brought this up earlier. I didn't remember this until you said it, but I told you, I can't have you at the house. Like, you got to go spend some nights over at your dad's because I just need some space. And I think that really scared you.
Absolutely. You don't change until there's pain. And I didn't really understand that. You'll know it. When the pain's real, you'll know when that is. And so that hits you that hits you hard. If you're just doing good, there's not that... I'm not trying to say there's competition like in the dating world, but I'm glad about this. If you're just a good provider,
a good husband,
and you're just good, and you care about your kids. I don't want to paint pictures and put people off, but if you're not growing that relationship, you're missing something, and your partner's not going to feel good about it. And that partner may want to choose to be fulfilled in different ways, and may leave because you don't want to grow. And that's not fair to your partner. If you don't want to grow and they want to grow, boy, that's a recipe for a disaster. That's the way, one of the things I was writing my little notes down.
Yeah.
And all this kind of comes down to is I want our daughter to understand what a healthy relationship looks like. Is me demonstrating that and modeling that for her, how I treat her mother. Because I don't want some guy. It scares me. It's just sad. And it's sad that women go through this. Typically, it's women go through this. Just a man is so much stronger. I know I'm jumping all over the place. My daughter was, if somebody ever tried to hurt me, I just punch them and hit me there.
She says that all the time.
Especially when she was really little. And now that she's older, and I know I said this during her 8th grade year, I go, you don't understand how I'm just maybe 2 inches taller than you, but
we're digressing in a different direction. I really want to go into criticisms because criticisms were one of the hardest parts. And I think that there's a lot of subtle, quiet, invisible things that can really kill a marriage, especially when you don't understand like what they are. And my mom will always say, I married directors, people who go in and they direct the show within their work. And when you're directing the show, they're always calling the shots. They're telling people exactly what to do. And so they'd come back to the house and they'd be very critical, like they're trying to direct the shots. And when you were talking about criticisms kill a marriage, criticism is really contempt and cynicism. Explain that to people. Because when we went through marriage counseling, the counselor was like, Julie, you're not really calling him on it in the moment. You're like letting it fester. You have to call him on it, even if it's 3 times a day, or like one time I counted it was a weekend and it was like 30 times in one day. It was like criticism after criticism. And I had to keep calling him on it. It was one of the hardest things that I ever had to do, but it made you see just how much you were verbalizing your opinions.
Yeah. Okay. And that's fair. And I'm glad that she did, because again, I'm a better person because of it. But
what are criticisms? Like, explain it in contempt.
So there's 4 major issues. Probably one of my biggest issues was I was too critical, or that criticism. Again, there's a difference between a complaint and being critical or having that criticism. A complaint would be, and again, I got this from the John Gottman book, The 7 Principles of Making a Marriage Work. This example of, let's just say Julie takes the car and she drives and it's out of gas, or just about out of gas. And she said, I know it's running low, I'm going to go get it. And then the next day I get in the car and, hey, you said you're going to get gas. I'm out of gas. I don't have time for this. And that's not fair to me. That's a complaint. And that's actually justifiable to say it. Now, when you're being cynical or being overly critical, is saying you never fill up the car. What is wrong with you? And that gets into the shame tank. And again, we watch TV shows, we watch all these movies, all this dysfunction that's never corrected. And I hate it when we watch a show and it's okay. And it goes back to how it was resolved. And I wish they would point that out.
That it wasn't healthy behavior.
That it wasn't healthy behavior. So that's the critical part of things.
The antidote.
Let me go through the other one that it really destroys marriages is being contempt, and that's using sarcasm and cynicism. So that's where the eye rolling or the mockery or being hostile or having hostile humor. And it's just so that what is the antidote for that is to talk to your partner and find that fondness and admiration towards them, giving them affirmations. Because when they hear, hey, thanks for putting the dishes away, even though I tend to do the dishes, that made it really nice that I didn't have to worry about that. Thank you. What did that took 7 seconds, and it didn't cost you any money, and it makes the other person feel a little bit valued, and odds are they might do it again, and then you can spend more time with your partner. And I used to say, I need the kitchen clean, this and that. And now I remember saying, I want to start the best part of my day, ladies, to my girls. my girls, I always say my girls. I want to watch a show with my girls, but can I help me in the kitchen? If we all just spend 12 minutes, we can start the best part of my day and we'll watch a family show. Yeah. And that feels a lot better than, child, do this. Julie, wife, do that. And you're barked at it, and boy, that just doesn't feel good.
Right.
And it's a lose-lose for everybody.
One of the things that we'll explain too, like when we dive into the podcast, is that our counselor says that most people marry their brains opposite. So your brains are actually, one person is normally neurotypical in the relationship and one person is normally neurodivergent. And actually together, what he'd say is you have a whole brain. You function well together because of that. But it's also where the frustrations come from, because I would say that when I have my piles put away, which is not often, everything in the house has a home that I am thinking of. If I put something away, it knows where it's supposed to go. But I do have piles all over. And he is very clean, where unless like the floor doesn't have any crumbs and is really clean, and the island in the kitchen is completely clean. The way that the counselor described it to me is that Blake's brain is messy and he doesn't feel ease, he doesn't feel relaxed until everything is cleaned up in the kitchen, the dishes are out of the sink and they're in the dishwasher is even unloaded, and then he can sit down. Because I remember at the beginning of our relationship, like, I would sit down to watch a show and I'd be so frustrated, like, I've been sitting on the couch for 30 minutes, 45 minutes waiting for you to come over, when you really just needed me to get up and help you with what you needed help with. We probably could have knocked that out in 15 minutes, and then you can sit down and feel peace. I'm exhausted from using my brain all day with my ADHD. Most ADHD people are just totally, completely depleted at the end of the day, and we can sit down and watch a show together.
And I may not even known, like, she was sitting and waiting for me. It just, that's my go-to, is just to clean. And so you're going to hear me say this, man dumb, be direct. You got to tell me what you need.
Yeah.
And it goes both ways. But going back to our counselor again, this is probably our fourth counselor. We didn't do anything dumb where we had an affair. It just, we lost that connection. And there's a different podcast you could probably catch where we talk about things. And I don't want to go into it too much, but our child had a lot of medical issues. And it was really scary. I could cry right now just thinking about it. But long story short, she didn't eat by mouth until she was age 3. And lots of operations, lots of being in the hospital. Thank goodness I had a job where my principal said, you be with your family. That's why you have sick days. And I had great colleagues that did the best they could to keep my program going for that last quarter of the school year at that time. But I kind of lost my train of thought there. But, so we didn't do anything dumb. We just lost connection. And what happens is, I know that it was me that I felt resentment, and then Julie had to feel resentment too, and we just weren't turning towards each other. And I remember sitting down with the current counselor that we have, and I think we focus on the good counselors instead of the counselors that said, just make it a laundry list, and you guys just create a list of when you're going to do chores. I don't know. And our counselor Mark, it just, what a blessing to have.
Yeah.
And Julie's going to like this. She's going to love this. I wanted to make our marriage better because I didn't want to go through what my parents went through. I never envisioned that. And I really thought I was right.
Oh, yeah. What he's talking about is, I'll ask the question, why did you agree to go to another counselor when I asked you the last time when we found Mark?
Just because every time all these other counselors, it was like, just make a list. And I'm like, that sounds awesome. But it wasn't the right person. And when we worked with Mark, I really thought, this stuff seems logical to me. You
said you thought we were going to go to Mark and he was going to say, like the other counselors, Blake, you're the right, Julie, you're wrong.
Absolutely. I really thought that. But I don't think I would have.
But that's the reason that we got better, is because we ended up finding Mark and we both worked on our pieces.
Yeah. And what I love doing and why I'm doing this and taking on this concept of helping others and couples is because I love helping people that want to get help. I love teaching the students that want to be better each and every day. Even the second to last day of school, I'm focused and I'm driven. Even though, other teachers, they're doing whatever. That's not me. All right. I can't stand the students that are just rude and they aren't trying to make themselves better, but worse, they're bringing other people down. And I love that. And in this position, you're coming to us for help. That means you want the help. You're looking for help. You're looking for a tool to make yourself better. If you want to call it help, great. If you want to call it some sort of assistance, great. Whatever that stigma is. Sometimes there's a stigma, help is weakness. And that kind of comes from that what I would call the 1950s mentality of, my father, he was born in 44, but that 50s mentality of men don't show their emotions. And man, when my parents are going through a divorce and I'm a kid and I'm crying and I felt, I don't want to use the word, I felt like a wuss. And you could figure out the word that I was thinking about. But Mark was all about, you got to talk about your feelings. And what did that really mean? But I remember the first thing we're talking and he's just listening to us and he said, I got it. You guys just aren't connecting. And I was always like, all right, you just told us what it is. Let's check the box. I'm going to connect and we're done. And I don't need this. We're talking, it took me years to understand this, and it's constant work. And some of these exercises we're going to do at this retreat, through the courses that we're going to develop, that we're going to talk about, is just doing these exercises. The first one was FANO. First, just talk about feelings. What are your feelings? How are you feeling right now?
And I got to talk about this because I think that this is such a hard part for women who are deeply empathic, because women who are deeply empathic, you're feeling everybody else's feelings all the time. You're feeling your partner's feelings. You're feeling your child's feelings. And a lot of us, men can be very highly empathic too. So a lot of us grew up in households in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, where there was a lot of chaos. There was a lot happening. You could see that your parents didn't need one more problem in you. So what did? You learned how to shut your feelings off and not feel your feelings so that you didn't add to your parents' problems. And we stuffed it down. So I find that with a lot of empathic women, one of the very first things that we have to do is actually look at a very basic sheet of what are core feelings. What could you be feeling? So that you look at the list each time and you go, you know what? I'm really feeling sad. Or you know what? I'm really feeling, what are other core feelings?
You feel hurt.
Yeah.
On the negative, but on the maybe not so positive side, I feel hurt. I feel lonely. I feel inadequate. I feel anxious. Those are the negative, if you want to say negative ones. And the more the positive ones are, I feel happy. I feel glad. I feel content. It just break it down, because you could say you're angry, but it's really you're mad, and anger comes from mad.
When it comes to people who are very highly empathic, you have to understand what you're feeling. And there's a way to get to that. And then once you understand what you're feeling, you can vocalize that to your partner. And what I realized in myself, and why you'll hear Blake say over and over again on the new podcast that we start for couples, is like, man, dumb, be direct. He says that to me when he knows that I'm in my head. He knows that I'm thinking something, but I'm not saying it out loud. And so I need to realize that he can't read my mind, and I have to verbalize things to him in order to get my needs met. And that's okay.
Absolutely, it's okay. Yeah, it's not the Mel Gibson movie, What Women Want. So a couple other things that are huge in what causes dysfunction in a marriage, and again, getting this from the Gottman book. And again, I'm holding this up for those that will watch this. You see all these sticky notes and all these things. And
you're very proud of those. I love that.
Absolutely. We both bought our own book when we started working with Mark. And again, so one of the first things he said, you're not connected. And then, well, all right, that's easy and stuff. But it took a long time, and it was practice. And he said, with FANO, going back to the feelings, you just got to do a little bit every day. You just got to, FANO stands for feelings, affirmations, needs, and ownership.
And you say those to each other every day. It's the third episode that we're going to do on the couples podcast. We're going to talk all about it.
And he talked about it might feel a little forced at first, but little by little, it'll just start to happen. And then you start picking up when Mark was saying, oh, you have a really nice smile. And those are those little things that it wasn't hard for him to say that. And
you were saying
I could say those things too.
Yeah.
No,
when we would go in for counseling, and Mark, what you're talking about is Mark would always say, Julie, you've got a really nice smile. And it dawned in your head, oh, I could be telling her those things too.
Yeah. And just affirmations are just those little things that just build your partner up. And when you hear it, it builds you up. And that's what it's all about, because you're there for each other. So again, going to this Gottman book, and just even now, after I probably started looking at this 11 years ago, whenever it was, I'm revisiting some things that are so important. And it's a good refresher, not just for the moment when you're going through a crisis in your relationship, whether it's marriage or your partnership. But the last one talked about is stonewalling. And I think a lot of men do this, is we just avoid. I could tell she's in a mood. She's just not going to be happy. I'll just sit there and I'll just listen and just get, whether it's being yelled at or talked too strongly, and I'm just going to avoid it. And I might do it still, but I'm avoiding it. But what it really comes down to in the Gottman book, they said you're avoiding your marriage. And why would you want to live like that when marriage is supposed to be uplifting and to be stronger together? Again, we have a little thing where we laugh at each other, where we turn towards each other. And
lean in.
Yeah, and we do this where we're leaning in. When we have our counselor, we usually sit in a triangle. I don't usually like to sit on the couch where I'm turning my neck like this because that doesn't feel good to me. But there are moments when I see she's tearing up and I look at Mark and he's, yeah, you dummy, go over there and sit next to her. And yeah, of course, again, those are the little things that you learn.
Yeah.
So turning towards each other is just so emotional. It's just saying you're there for your partner.
Yeah.
Let's see. Stuff that I struggled with, again, maybe that typical, man, why am I listening to this right now? All right, you rambled on. All right, come on, give me some more good stuff, okay? The stuff that I know that I struggled with, and again, this is everybody's boundaries, and I didn't understand that boundaries are there to protect you. I think that I learned it wrong. Shame. Man, I know I was probably not till 43 years old, and I truly didn't see what the big deal. Because you see it on TV shows all the time.
People shaming one another.
And you think it's not a big deal, but boy, it just belittles you. Even in teaching, I'm a lot better now.
You were shamed a lot when you were in band.
Oh, but I think that's any kid growing up in the 90s in this music program. And again, music is about doing things really well at a high level in the programs I was involved in. And you just learn from that wasn't right, do it again. That wasn't right, do it again. Play it again. That's wrong. All right, you're on the next part. Go down a chair. And boy, it just didn't feel good. Now, some people are motivated by that, but a lot of people are turned off by that. And I know in my room, I have 23 pictures of or 24 pictures now of 23, because I've only been in Helper for 23 years. Sorry, I'm so literal that I would say, look in the upper left. If you look at a book, the upper left is the beginning. At the upper left, there's a picture of Mr. Jancius back in 2001. Man, I go, that guy, boy, was he tough. Boy, was he mean. And again, I didn't have a kid. I'm a young kid. I'm trying to prove something to the world. You get into 10, 12 years later on, I'm a lot different. And there are moments where I'm not proud of it, that shameful things come out, but it doesn't come out right away. It happens after the 17th day of a kid doing something instead of the seventh time somebody does that on the first day of the school year. So that stuff doesn't happen anymore. And let's see. Yeah, so again, it's how we were modeled. We just weren't modeled for, well.
We're having the couples retreat. So we're beta testing this, and we had so many couples reach out. I think that we have spaces left for 5 more couples. If you would like to join us, we would love to have you. You can reach out to me, Julie Jancius, at julie@theangelmedium.com. You can also just text me my cell phone number, and yes, I do give my cell phone number because everybody uses it responsibly, is 630-336-9515, 630-336-9515. And thank you for being respectful with that. Yeah, you can reach out. We would love to have you. Chicago is a really great place, hub in the US, where it's easy to just kind of get into. When you fly into Chicago, a lot of people ask me, Julie, am I flying into the city and am I going to be downtown in Chicago? No, not at all. You're going to be in one of the best suburbs of Illinois, very high class suburb. The reason that I use the hotel that we do in Oakbrook is because in Illinois, there aren't a lot of places where you can be in a hotel just like looking at the beauty and nature. And this is on one of the most beautiful golf courses, but it's also one of the most reasonable resorts and hotels. Really great food. So again, that's the last weekend in July. We're really walking you through the toolbox that we have developed and used, and you try a lot of different tools, like Blake's been saying. You try a lot of different things throughout life, finding different counselors. And I wish there had been something like this for us back in the day, to be like, okay, let me save you 5-7 years of going to counselor after counselor and telling your story and getting 6 months in and being like, oh crap, crap, this is not the counselor for us.
And then you start over again, and then
and nothing is fixed. And so we want you to come into this weekend, and this is for those of you who are looking to reconnect. You really love one another, but you just don't know exactly what you need. We're going to show you exactly
you're
what you
good,
need.
but you don't want to be good. You want to be outstanding. And that's the goal of this. Is it's to save you time. Again, everything there's a cost, but one of the biggest costs is your time.
Yeah.
But it does give you that freedom to do other things and to have some travels. Now, Disney in the summer is really hot.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to a couple more things. And we're going to try to wrap this up in the next...
We got to wrap it up
probably
because we're
4
over.
minutes and stuff, within the next 4 minutes. So one of the things, this might have been months into it, maybe a year into it, and Julie's talking, and Mark says something, and I said, you're telling me all I have to do is listen, not to solve her problem? And again, this comes from the Gottman book, page 88. You have to offer support. You don't have to solve the problem. They just want to feel heard. They want to know that you understand what they're feeling instead of trying to solve the problem. I think the man's brain, typically, all right, this is how you solve it. And that's not what they're looking for.
Nope.
So, again, that's one of these little tools. And I just remember in Mark, and again, this is the funny thing is I just have to listen. And Mark kind of gave me a little wink or something like that. And it was just funny. And that's where you kind of get into your chuckling and you're sharing your life stories. And you're going to hear us tell a lot of stories of ourselves. And Mark did that too, our counselor. And at first I was like, why is this guy telling us so much about him? But just like the Gottman book, just like our counselor, he's making these connections to say, you're not alone. It's not just you that's going through this. I've gone through this. Hundreds of people, thousands, millions of people, everybody goes through these problems in relationships. But we're going to give you these toolboxes to make things for your relationship stronger. And it looks like we're probably out of time.
I have to get going, but I'm going to leave it to you to wrap up the podcast.
Oh boy, this is dangerous. Yeah. I'm so grateful for you guys taking the time to be here, and for the man that's like, I don't need this. It can't hurt to do this. It can't hurt to try to make yourself better. Maybe if you're around your peers. I don't hang out a lot with my coworkers as much as we all have families now, and it's harder to get together. But I know sometimes, why would you do that? All that stuff. If they're saying those things and they're not being supportive to you, or maybe you're talking to a brother or to a sister, man, are they really a good peer and a good friend for you? You're trying to make your marriage stronger, your partnership stronger. Why wouldn't they want to support you? It's nothing to them, so why would they even say anything on the negative side of things? And I'm sure we're going to get into all these things, but since I have the microphone, I'll talk for a couple more minutes. I know, like, my father, again, my parents went through this divorce. I'm in middle school. I know it was happening around 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade. I definitely knew about it. I wasn't involved in any of the court stuff. And I'm not going to get into all the nitty-gritty stuff. But I had a very bad falling out with my mother, and I didn't really talk to her for over 20-some years. And I reached out to her when Julie and I were starting to have these problems. And I said, I see why you went through these things, why you had to leave. And that's fine that they had to get a divorce, but it was just really messy, and it was really hurtful to myself and my younger sister. I have 2 older sisters, one that's 10 and one that's 8 years older than me. I'm sure it was still hurtful, but not on the level of a kid. But my dad, and I love my father, he's the one that raised me. My mother left, and like I said, I didn't really have a healthy relationship with her for over 22 years. And he would always say, I can't believe your mother. I can't believe you have all this stuff. And we had this beautiful home. You have this car, this Cadillac, and you have this, and you have this, and all this material stuff. And it's hard for me to say this right now. I still can't say this to my dad. I can't imagine he's going to listen to a podcast. He's 80 years old. But he was missing that connectedness. It wasn't the material stuff. My mother was missing that emotional element. And so that's one of the stories of why I never wanted to put Julie through this. And I never want to put my daughter through what I went through or what my younger sister went through. And as bad as it was for us, I'm sure there's a lot of families that have it a lot worse. There was never abuse in my family. It was just, but I don't want to go there at this point. Let me see, what else can I talk about? Like I said, there's no quick fix. Just because you come to this retreat, it doesn't mean it's automatically better, but it gives you that tool for every day to make just a little bit of progress. And I'm saying this to you as, again, I'm not a counselor and I'm working on being a coach, a life coach, but taking different seminars, and really for the last probably 4 months, all I do in the morning is listen to Tony Robbins stuff on YouTube. It's because I need that positivity. I need to start my day with positive stuff in my head instead of listening to how bad the Bulls are or what the Bears are doing wrong, the Chicago sports teams. Instead of hearing the political elements that are going on, whoever's in office, there's always something wrong, right? There's always something wrong. And those are things that I just can't control. And so why would I want to even have that absorb and start my day that way? How can I be the best start to my day as I go into my teaching day, starting my day off right with Julie and with our girl, our child? But so there's no quick fix, but progress does equal happiness. And doing FANO, at first it feels a little hard to do. And little by little, now it just happens. But again, I've been doing this for 11 years now. So more and more, the more you do, it will help. And again, for those that feel stuck, for those that feel sad, and I felt sad for a long time. And again, I don't like to empower the D word. The D word is depression. And for those that need it, obviously get the help and stuff. But if you think about and be grateful and think about gratitude, what are you grateful for? And it could be, I woke up and it's a sunny day, and I woke up and I have food. I get to go to work. Again, I am a teacher, and I said this at my concert. The kids will say, "Hey, Mr. J, you were so great putting up with this and that, and we're a pain in the butt and all that stuff." And I said, I don't have to teach. I get to teach. And you guys get to learn, and how wonderful that is in our country. Because some countries, they don't want specifically young girls to learn or women to learn. But I don't mean to get into that political element of things or that type of thinking of I get to do this. I made these choices. And I was listening to something. Nothing is an accident. Nothing is an accident. It all starts with your choices. And I know I talk about that with my teachings. When we do our concerts, we're pretty polished in how we enter, how we exit. We actually practice where we sit. We actually practice how we enter the stage. We actually practice going from one song to the next in between. So it's this refined product. Nothing is an accident. Just like in life, all the stuff, and I tell our daughter, this isn't an accident where you live. It's because I've been prepping this throughout my education. This is what I want to be. This is where I want to be living and career-wise. But nothing is an accident. I find your mom might have maybe been a happy accident, but that's because I was in a good place, and then you develop this great life together. But it's because you work together and you're making choices together to make your marriage stronger, your relationship stronger. Last thing I'll say, because I know Julie was talking about this, for thousands of years, priests would they would advise young couples as they're getting married to start their life. And Julie said, that just doesn't make sense. You're not married yourself. So how are you going to know the issues that are going to happen? And it does make sense to me now. And I always thought, I'm never going to have that problem. I'm in love with this girl. Nothing could go wrong, right? But stuff is going to happen in your life, in your career, that might frustrate you. You pull different ways, and everybody has different priorities at different times. But you just got to remember you're there for your partner. And whether it's your first year together or your 60th year together, and that's the goal, hey, let's get there, is you just want to keep on growing. Because when you grow, the magic's always going to be there. It's not Disney World, but there is a lot of magic. Because what's the alternative? Not being together, and then it gets more complicated when there are children involved. And again, progress equals happiness. And if you are stuck or you're just in an okay spot, and you know you've been better, your goal is to get better, hey, why not take a chance? Why not spend some time with us? And that's our goal, is to try to help you and to be the best that you could be, so you guys could be stronger together. Thank you for your time. I'm Blake Jancius, and again, my wife, Julie Jancius. I don't know her send-off to her podcast, but thank you for the time being with us, and I hope I close this out right and not delete anything. All right, take care, and bye-bye.